Welcome to Spirit School. I'm your mentor, Danielle Sarank, also known as the Squamish Medium. In this podcast, I share honestly all I have learned about the mediumship and spiritual development journey. My intention is to normalize these conversations, to make way for a more confident, clear, and connected wave of lightworkers, serving the world of spirit with an open and joyful soul. Welcome again to Spirit School.
Hello, Spirit School listeners. I am so excited to be here. As you can hear, I am not Danielle. My name is Payton Scroggins. I am one of the mentors here at Team Spirit School, and I'm so excited to be able to join you today for an episode of the Spirit School podcast. You might have heard an earlier episode where Danielle interviewed both Andrea and I to introduce us to everyone, but I wanted to come on here and share my voice a little bit and share a recent experience that I had that I think is pretty relevant with what I've been noticing in the Spirit School community. It kind of aligns with the previous episode Danielle had just released about some members in the community voicing their questions and concerns and looking for some guidance around what it's like to feel a little bit of loneliness when you are on this spiritual path. And I remember when this conversation came up in the chat in the Spirit School Collective, I quickly commented on it and shared that this is something that I have also experienced. And I was I don't think the word's excited, but I was relieved to see that this topic was being brought up because I do think it's a very important thing to talk about. There's so much focus when starting this path and when we're on this journey of rediscovering our spiritual selves. And I will speak for myself. For me, and I know for a lot of you out there as well, I've always been aware of the spiritual world and the things around me, but a lot of times I thought it was just my imagination, or I enjoyed the fantasies and things about these beings, these angels, these deities, these coincidences of knowing things before they happened. When we see those in media and when we hear about those in stories, there's a lot of magic connected to it. And it's kind of in the fantasy world and it's a way to escape. So I always just kind of had that relationship with it, that was just my active imagination. But it was later in life for me where I was then to focus my awareness in that space and explore what that meant and begin to become re-aware of this part of me. As I was becoming re-aware, my awareness, my focus was now in this world that had always just been what I blew off as my imagination or my overactive imagination. It began to open up such magical experiences. I mean, if you would have told myself 5, 6 years ago that I was a medium or that the fact that I have dreams of things that come true, or the realness and the truth around when my ancestors come to visit me in dreams. If you were to tell me that was going to be a path I was going to start putting a lot of energy towards and then put myself out there to the world, I would have thought that was just insane. That would have made no sense to me, not that long ago. Even though I was aware of it, I was very open to that world. I didn't know that I was going to have a place in it. So the first few years, of this journey was so magical and so amazing and so many beautiful experiences, and being able to take those experiences and then apply that to helping other people and giving some healing, maybe that's a little bit of softening their grief or expanding their mindset that lets them know, their self-worth or however that ends up looking, be able to use that for that purpose. It was amazing. And it lit me up. It came for me at a time that it was time to focus on myself and focus on who I really am and let that part of me shine. So it was so expansive and so, like I said, magical. It's really hard to use any other term, but that also ebbs and flows. And it's now a new understanding and it's a new awareness that I think a lot of us have to navigate and understand and learn what that means for us. And as Danielle has shared in her previous podcast, that there can be these times that when you need to human a little bit, you might have to back away from some of those experiences and some of that spiritual connection. And I think for some of us, our experiences here on earth, when we're earthing, when we're, doing our people work, the reason we came here in the first place, sometimes there's some difficult moments that cause different levels of energetic glue that sticks to us that we have to work through. And as all of you know that have been listening for a long time, this journey is going to help you break that glue down. And it is going to be a journey within and help you start to heal some of those pieces, which I think that ends up in many ways being a reason why we began to start to feel lonely because sometimes the people or the circumstances or situations that we're in, we have used to help mask or help soften or help manage those feelings or those parts of ourselves that crave healing, that those parts of ourselves that are that way due to experiences we've had. Or I want to be gentle with the word trauma, but the traumas that we have, either big T's or little T's, can sometimes be what then inspires us to have certain people or situations in our lives. So when we go down this spiritual journey, we begin to, I feel we have no choice but to face those and begin to maybe try to understand those deeper. And my experience has been that you have to heal those things. It's hard to move forward and continue to grow and expand until those parts of the pavement have been repaired, the pavement of your journey. I always look at it as a road in my mind's eye. It's like this stone path that we walk upon, and there's cracks in there that sometimes we need to mend so that we don't trip over them anymore. As we do that, then we begin to maybe we begin to have different relationships with these people or different relationships with our environments, and that is difficult to navigate. So I personally have been experiencing that. So I wanted to share that with all of you that I also know what this feels like. And myself, I have also had a lot of changes personally in my world. So that definitely has some effect on kind of what I've been experiencing. But for the past handful of months, I've been having to really face a lot of that stuff. I've not been feeling extremely, I don't want to say connected because spirit always makes sure I know that they're there, but I've been having to focus a lot more on my human and not put quite as much energy spiritually that I had been for the past few years as I've been on this development journey. And it does begin to feel, it kind of feeds into that loneliness because now you've expanded and maybe you're not in the same energetic vibe as you were before. So the people and situations you were in no longer feel comfortable. So now you're kind of on this new part of your path that isn't quite as crowded. So that can feel a little lonely. And then you're in a place where you're having to refeel and kind of go through some of these more shadowy sides of your psyche that then can start to be challenging. And it's a real thing. And then as you're doing that, maybe you start to begin to not feel so spiritual and you feel that maybe you're not as, again, I don't want to use the word connected, but Danielle explained it a long time ago that sometimes we have to focus on our human. Sometimes we have to bring our energy inward. And that can be challenging. And when we do that, we tend to not then, our receptors aren't picking up as much as they were because we're not as expanded. So, a personal experience I've had as I was sharing with all of this. So, going through some challenging moments this year, I gratefully, and I'm very grateful for it. I had planned a really amazing trip for this year during spring. And if you know me or if you've met me or, I have a podcast of my own. It's called Solely. My colleague Shayla and I talk all about spiritual stuff. So I'm there. If you've listened to that or if you've interacted with me at all, I'm sure at some point I have brought up my devout love for Greek history, Greek culture, Greek mythology, Greek language, Greek music. I love it all. Where that love and passion comes from, I have no idea. My safest guess is that I must have a past life there. And if there was some way to like 100% prove your past lives, I would put very good money on the fact that I must have lived there at some point. But anyhow, so I worked so hard. I planned for a long time and I was able to, with one of my best friends, we were able to coordinate this amazing trip that I have just returned from. It was an extremely magical experience. Greece is such a beautiful country. There's so much to it. We took a road trip around the entire mainland and we just got to see so much history, so much culture, so much beauty, so much nature. It was phenomenal. Nature for me is very healing. That is, being in the mountains, which Greece is like 70% mountains. So you're always in some sort of mountain. Being in the mountains, just being near, obviously Greece is, there's no place that's very far from the sea. So being near water, being near all the animals, all the things that are there is just very healing and it's very energizing for me. So this was actually my second trip to the country. And the first time I went, it was much earlier in my spiritual journey. So, things were very magical. I had very powerful experiences and went to some very magical places, one being Delphi. If you are familiar with history, there was an oracle who was referred to as Pythia, and she resided in Delphi. She was at the Temple of Apollo that's in Delphi. The ruins are still there today. And people from all over the ancient world would travel up to these mountains, Mount Parnassus, to seek her guidance. And there's a beautiful site there that you can still go to. The energy there is palpable. It's beautiful. Spirit is very, very much there. It was just amazing. So I was very excited to return to this place and take my friend to share. And so before this trip, like I said, I had been kind of in the spiritual melancholy place, kind of navigating some things. And even when I got there, I just felt, I've been just kind of fighting through some depression. I've been kind of fighting through some of this disconnected feeling. But having this feeling in my heart that once I got there, for sure, it's going to be like lights turned on and everything's going to come back on. And I'm going to feel amazing. And there were moments that did happen. It's not common for me mediumistically that spirit will come to me unintended, where usually, as you see in TV shows, with mediums that are on TV, they'll be walking through a store and, hey, I mean, it's all television, it's all scripted, but we get this idea that spirit's just constantly hanging around and you're constantly picking up things. And maybe for some people, that is the way it is. I have just built up some boundaries that I don't really want to receive unless I'm working. This is the moment I want to do it. This is when it's appropriate for everyone. So that's just a boundary that I had. But while I was there was a few times I would be sitting at a cafe or in a restaurant and I started picking up information. And that was the first time for quite a while that I was starting to even feel my mediumship come back on. So I was having some magical moments. I had a moment in the sea that was very powerful, very cleansing. I could feel the energy of the water connecting with my energy. And being at Delphi, I meditated there for a minute and, had a beautiful experience there as well. But most of the time, I was just there and just in my human. And I've shared this on my podcast that since my journey began, I have really cut back on, I don't drink very much anymore. That was part of my journey of like self-discovery and how my gifts work and all of that. I needed to just pull away from everything so I could figure out how this works for me in the most clear way possible without any fogginess coming from any sort of, substance, fear or whatever. So, but when I was there, it's vacation. You go and you have fun and, it's vacation. So I was drinking beer. I was having a good time. I was just relaxing. I was napping all the time. Like every day I would get up, go have breakfast, come back to my room, sometimes go back to sleep. I mean, it was fabulous. I'm very grateful that I live a very busy, very chaotic life. So I'm grateful that I was able to do all of this. So anyway, had a beautiful time. I found feathers galore, so spirit was there with me. But my point of sharing this whole story is that when I returned, I did feel a little bit refreshed. So it was nice and very needed to be able to get out of my environment to kind of reset my psyche, reset my mindset, get away from my worries and my troubles so that I could kind of hit the reset button. But the day after I got back, I felt very aware of spirit. I felt very aware that it was a good time to do some card pulls. It was a good time to sit and meditate. It was a good time to explore what it is that I did receive while I was on this trip. And spirit made it very clear to me that it's a good reminder to remember, even though those moments when we interact with angels, those moments that we get validation that we've brought through someone's loved one, the moments when we keep seeing the same number at every turn that we look, and in our heart, we can feel spirit with us. Even in those most magical moments, being as spiritual as it is, and as much as that is so important on our journey of spiritual growth and on our journey of knowing who we are and how we connect to this world, it is just as equally important to remember that living life and being here on earth and having just human experiences is maybe even sometimes more of a spiritual experience than seeing angel numbers. It is maybe even sometimes more of a spiritual experience of being aware that an angel is here guiding you through something or helping you through something. So we need to remember that we are still here. We came here for a reason. We're having this experience for a reason. There's still something that our soul needs to gain from being through this journey here on earth. And it's important to make sure that we keep a balance of that. Because I know when we begin to discover, become re-aware of this part of ourselves, it feels so fulfilling. It's so expansive. It's so magical that it kind of pulls us in this one direction of being elsewhere. Danielle talked about this too in the episode she shared, that in the beginning, you're so excited. You want to share it with everyone. And that doesn't always get received with open arms. That doesn't always get understood because we have to remember it's our journey. It's our moment. It's our time through that. No one else is going to really fully understand it. All we can hope is that we inspire others to find their way and find back to themselves and, find what inspires and lights them up. But we can get a little lost in it because it's almost, it's like you found your way back home and now you just want to stay in the house and you want to explore every room again and you want to experience it. But there's still also so much that we can gain and so much that we can learn and so much we can understand from just having a beer and sitting and being in nature and just being in our human and not focusing always on spirit in the spirit world. So it just felt like that was very important. And I think that that goes hand in hand with this journey of feeling sometimes not at our highest vibration, sometimes not at our most shining selves when we have to human and when we feel maybe lonely, to remember that even in those times, there's so much to be learned, whether it's the moment that being lonely and having to really come back to ourselves and then maybe find out why we're feeling uncomfortable. What is it within us that feels sad? What is it within us that's triggering this depression? What is it in us that's making us feel disconnected from others? Where does that come from? And is this an opportunity to maybe feel that and look at that differently and process it differently so that we're maybe able to have a different relationship with it, which then helps our experience, it helps our soul, it helps our psyche expand and grow and heal. And that in itself is very spiritual. That in itself is going to assist in our spiritual journey. That itself healing that physical experience situations or things that is what's going to make us even more able to receive angel messages. That's what's going to be able to make us connect to spirit even more, because we're getting an opportunity to again repave some of the cement that maybe has been damaged along our path. So thank you all so much for letting me share that story with you. I hope it resonates and I hope it helps at least a few of you feel that you are not alone, as I felt when I was reading in the group chat in the collective, as everyone shared that their experience or how they were feeling about this. That's the most beautiful thing about having community. And that's the most beautiful thing about all of us having found each other, even though we're spread all over different countries, all over the world. I mean, there's people listening to this podcast everywhere. So even though we might be physically far apart from each other, we all are still connected to some degree. And that I feel is very important and is great for all of us to be able to support each other. So thank you so much for letting me steal your ear for a little bit of time here on this Spirit School podcast. I'm grateful to be a part of this community. I hold a practice circle once a month, as Charla and Andrea and Danielle do. And then once a month, I love divine beings. I love angels. I love deities. I love connecting to that aspect of spirit and helping guide people through that. So once a month, I also share in the free space a quick little guided meditation where we kind of focus on a specific topic which relates with what's going on in the current energy and helps build our connection with those beings. And then I usually do some card pulls, which seems to be pretty fun. So if you are not part of the Spirit School community, I very much invite you to join, come check it out, join the free space. You get a pretty good taste of kind of what's going on. And then if you are developing your mediumship skills, I encourage you to check out the collective, because it's a great community of people. We all get time to practice with each other and share and expand with each other and help each other grow, which is it's awesome. So thank you, Spirit School. I look forward to checking in with you again in the future, and we will see you next time.
Did you know that Spirit School is not just a podcast? It's an actual school. If you go to myspiritschool.com, you can invest in self-study courses, live programs, and of course the Spirit School Collective, my baby, my monthly membership community. All Spirit School offerings are intended to get you feeling clear, confident, and connected to your spiritual path, your development journey, and of course, connected to other spiritual curious souls who are having similar experiences to you. I hope to see you in Spirit School.